Joining me now is editor and contributor at Turn Left Media, Ben Mclaine. Ben, always good to talk to you, lovely. So tell us what this march is all about today.
Yes, so my understanding is that they have three basic demands. Number one would be taxing the super rich to fund public services. Number two would be creating decent, well-paid and, I believe, unionised jobs in sustainable industries. That's important around the country. And making sure that that wealth is, of course, spread out so that areas like in the north that are very neglected get some of that wealth, and also the third demand is making polluting corporations foot the bill for climate action. There was a 2017 Carbon Majors report which found that 100 companies are responsible for about 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And I think we should be doing something about that. OK, and what sort of people are down there? What sort of speakers are attending today? Yes, I know that Gary Stevenson is among them, but you've got some very unusual groups that you wouldn't necessarily think to be among them. Such as the Fire Brigades Union, but the Fire Brigades Union, of course, is seeing the impacts that climate change is having on the increased wildfires and things like that. So you can understand why they're there. It's an issue that needs the super rich to pay their fair share in order to start solving these issues. You know, while we've got people using food banks in our country, it seems ridiculous to have billionaires to me, because I think that people often don't grasp the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. A million seconds is about 11 days. A billion seconds, 34 years. I mean, can you imagine waiting for a doctor's appointment for 11 days, and then the difference between waiting for that doctor's appointment for 11 days and then waiting 34 years for that doctor's appointment? It's an obscene amount of wealth, right?
That is fair. I mean, Zach Walensky, I understand, is down there, the new leader of the Green Party. He's quite a firebrand, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. I'm sure you know. I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, he's a solid guy, and he's calling for these taxes on the super rich, and a lot of it is being met with the accusation, well, the super rich will just leave. Well, there's several arguments that you can make against that. First of all, you tax assets that people can't move. So, for example, the Duke of Westminster owns half of Mayfair. If you tax him on those assets, he can't deconstruct it brick by brick and take Mayfair with him on the plane. That's not how it works, right? You can actually tax assets, and people can't move those assets. And it's worked very well, for example, in Spain, where the number of billionaires has actually gone up since they introduced their wealth taxes in 2022, from I think it was from 24 billionaires to 34 billionaires. I might be misremembering that exact figure, but either way, the number's gone up. And the proposed wealth tax that this march are suggesting is 2% tax on assets over £10 million, right? A 2% wealth tax on assets over £10 million is less than Pedro Sanchez introduced in Spain. It was 3.5% on assets over £10 million. So if it hasn't driven away billionaires in Spain, if it's actually increased the number of billionaires, I see no reason why we shouldn't do it here.
OK, but I mean, Spain might be an anomaly. I haven't done enough research on the situation in Spain, but that is the only country in history where taxing the super wealthy has worked. Historically, it hasn't worked in any country.
For example, the post-war consensus in Britain and America, it worked there as well. We had a 90% tax rate on the uber wealthy. Like, it does work, I'm afraid. Like, the idea that it drives people away is based on a myth that the rich are willing to perpetuate, because they will whinge, they will whine, they will moan, but at the end of the day...
And they will leave the country. I mean, technically, that does happen. That happened back in the 70s when we had this situation of very high taxes on the wealthy. They simply left the country.
No, they didn't. That was due to the OPEC oil crisis, right? There was an oil crisis in the middle. That's most of what accounts for the crisis we saw in the 70s. I think that the idea that they leave isn't backed up well by the evidence, because the other thing is it's not just enough for them to be here. Right? They have to be here and be investing. And the investment comes from good infrastructure and macroeconomic stability. You can't have those things without taxing the wealthy so that you can fund public services, you can fund infrastructure. And, you know, it's no good opening, like Bill Gates opening a laptop company in the centre of London, if no one in London can afford to buy laptops because everybody's too poor.
Well, we have just announced that amazing tech deal with America. We're yet to see the full details on it, about investing in this country. Do you think if this taxing the super rich, you know, it becomes a thing under the Labour government, it won't, or the Green government, or whatever it is, people are going to want to invest in the UK?
Yeah,
they're not going to, are they? They're going to invest in any other country apart from the UK.
So if you want to turn yourself into a tax haven, we can try and imitate Panama or the Cayman Islands. But the thing is nobody wants to live in Panama and the Cayman Islands for the quality of life, right? If you ignore the tax benefits, then there's no real reason to move to somewhere like Panama or the Cayman Islands. These are not like world economic superpowers for a reason, even though they've got very, very low tax rates. The places that are world economic superpowers, it's nothing to do with their tax rate, really.
Right, so that involves sort of like Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Any case, Ben, we have run out of time, unfortunately. Ben, thank you very much for joining us already. That's Ben Mclaine, editor and contributor at Turn Left Media. Thank